Hi, welcome to Kevin Alone's audiobook reading Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Part 3.5. Apple does not lock on good ideas. They are smart, innovative thinkers at most companies. But great companies give their people a purpose or challenge around which develop ideas rather than simply instruct them to make a better mousetrap. Companies that study their competitors in hopes of adding the features and benefits that will make their products better are only working to entrench the company in what it does. Companies with a clear sense of why tend to ignore their competition, whereas those with a fuzzy sense of why are obsessed with what others are doing. The ability of a company to innovate is not just useful for developing new ideas, it is invaluable for navigating struggle. When people come to work with a higher sense of purpose, they find it easier to weather hard times or even try to find an opportunity in those hard times. People who come to work with a clear sense of why are less prone to giving up after a few failures because they understand the higher costs. Thomas Edison, a man definitely driven by a higher cost, said, I didn't find a way to make a light bulb. I found a thousand ways how not to make one. Southwest Airlines is famous for pioneering the 10-minute turnaround, the ability to deplane, prep, and board a plane in 10 minutes. This ability helps an airline make more money because the more planes are in the sky, the better the company is doing. What few people realize is that this innovation was born out of struggle. In 1971, Southwest was running low on cash and needed to sell one of their aircraft to stay in business. This left them with three planes to fly, a schedule that required four. They had two choices. They could scale back their operations, or they could figure out how to turn their planes around in 10 minutes. And this born the 10-minute turnaround. Whereas most other airlines employees would have simply said it couldn't be done, Southwest's people rallied to figure out how to perform the unprecedented and seemingly impossible task. Today, their innovation is still paying dividends. Because of increased airport congestion and larger planes and cargo loads, Southwest now takes about 25 minutes to turn their planes around. However, if they were to try to keep the same schedule but add even 5 minutes to the turnaround time, they would need an additional 18 planes in their fleet at a cost of nearly $1 billion. Southwest's remarkable ability to solve problems, Apple's remarkable knack for innovation, and Wright brothers' ability to develop a technology with the team they had were all possible because for the same reason. They believed they could and they trusted their people to do it. Definition of trust. Founded by Sir Francis Baring in 1762, Baring's Bank was the oldest merchant bank in England. The bank, which survived the Napoleonic Wars, World War I, and World War II, was unable to survive the predilection for risks of one self-proclaimed rogue trader. Nick Leeson single-handedly brought down Barings Bank in 1995 by performing some unauthorized, extremely high-risk trades. Had the proverbial winds continued to blow in the right direction, Leeson would have made himself and the bank extremely rich, and he would have been hailed as a hero. But such is the nature of unpredictable things, like the weather and financial markets. Few dispute that what Leeson was doing was anything more than gambling. And gambling is very different from calculated risk. Calculated risk accepts that there can be great losses, but steps are taken to either guard against or respond to an unlikely but possible outcome. Even though an emergency landing on water is unlikely, as the airlines tell us, they still provide us life jackets, and if only for peace of mind, we're glad they do. To do otherwise is a gamble few airlines would be willing to take, even though the actuarial tables are heavily weighted on their side. Leeson strangely held two positions at Barings, ostensibly serving as both a trader and his own supervisor. But that fact is not interesting, given the subject matter. That one man had such a fault tolerance for risk that he could create so much damage is not very interesting either. Both of those are short term factors. Both would have ended if Leeson had either left the company or changed jobs, or if Barings had assigned a new supervisor to oversee his operations. What is more interesting is the culture at the bank that could allow these conditions to exist in the first place. Barings had lost its why. The culture at Barings was no longer one in which people came to work inspired. Motivated, yes, but not inspired. Manipulated by the promise of massive payouts for performance, for sure, but not inspired to work in the best interest of the whole. As Leeson reported in his own account of how he got away with such risky behavior for so long, he said it was not that others didn't recognize that what he was doing was potentially dangerous. It was worse than that. There was a stigma against speaking out. People at the London end of Barings, Leeson explained, were all so know all that nobody dared ask a stupid question in case they looked silly in front of everyone else. The lack of a clear set of values and beliefs, along with the weak culture that resulted, created the conditions for an every man for himself environment, the long term impact of which could yield little less and else than a disaster. This is caveman stuff. If the people aren't looking out for the community, then the benefits of a community erode. Many companies have star employees and star salesmen and so on, but few have a culture that produces great people as a rule and not an exception. Trust is a remarkable thing. Trust allows us to rely on others. We rely on those we trust for advice to help us make decisions. Trust is the bedrock for the advancement of our own lives, our families, our companies, our societies, and our species. We trust those in our community to care for our children so we can go out to dinner. Given the choice between two babysitters, we're more likely to trust a babysitter with a little experience from the neighborhood than one with lots of experience from far away. We wouldn't trust someone from the outside because we don't know anything about them, we say. The reality is, we don't know anything about the local babysitter either, beyond the fact that she's from the neighborhood. In this case, we trust familiarity over experience with something quite important, the safety of our children. We trust that someone who lives in the community and more likely shares our values and beliefs is better qualified to care for the most valuable thing in our lives over someone with a long resume but from an unfamiliar place. That's pretty remarkable. It causes some pause when we consider how we hire people. What's more important, their resume and experience, or whether they will fit our community? Our children are probably more important than the position we want to fill at the organization. Yet we seem to exercise a very different standard. Is there a false assumption at play here as to who makes the best employee? Historically, trust has played a bigger role in advancing companies and societies than skill set alone, like the couple leaving their children while they go out on a date for the evening. Groups from within a society would go off with confidence, knowing that their homes and families would be safe upon their return.